Welcome to Verbal Pick Radio. We give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. Like to welcome you all to the show. Basically, I want to deal with the elements of this universe. We are carbon, which is melanin, and oxygen, which makes up chemistry or chemetic. That's who we are. Coming out of that first original substance titled melanin, right? But I want to play something for you guys, and because sometimes we do this on Verbal Pick Radio because sometimes people can explain it better than I could. And so since this show is all about gathering information and knowledge, we have to do this. Now, briefly speaking on the Nick Cannon situation, Professor Griff, D.L. Hughley, and those that's out there giving their take on the whole situation. Some are saying, well, of course, Nick Cannon should have never had Griff on his show because Nick Cannon is corporate, agreed upon. But to stop racism and police brutality, all the knowledge has to be vetted and placed on the table. Because it's not just beneficial to black people. Knowledge is beneficial to white people as well, because when you know better, you do better, or you have an opportunity to do better once you know, but at least you have the choice. Whether you're going to do better or whether you're not going to do better, that's up to the individual. But at least you'll have information to where you can make a decision from. And so that's basically what we do here on Verbal Pick Radio. It's about putting a long life fight to an end, because the fight is not justified anymore. Knowledge is present, and once knowledge is present, there's no need to fight over the truth. You either accept it or let it alone, like the minister always says, right? So we want to get into something, but I just want to read something to you first, and then we'll get into why I chose this particular topic, right? Let me gather this real quick, y'all. Okay, here we go. Okay, now, it says, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us of a giant mother plane that is made like the universe. Spheres within spheres. White people call them unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Ezekiel in the Old Testament saw a wheel that looked like a cloud by day, but a pillar of fire by night. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that wheel was built on the island of Nippon, which is now called Japan, by some of the original scientists, right? Now, let's get into it from a scientist, and let's hear what he has to say, because we have to do this here on Verbal Pick Radio. We gotta make it plain, so people can understand what's actually going on.
Web page, there's a really nice It's Elemental page where you can click on each of the elements and get information about each of the elements. And so you should visit that web page after the talk tonight. But there's a couple things I'd like to tell you about the periodic table of elements. And maybe the most amazing thing I can tell you about the periodic table of elements, and it's really quite a remarkable thing to be able to say. The periodic table of elements is not just the elements that we know of. It is all the elements that things can be made of in the universe. There is nothing that stuff can be made of that is not on our periodic table of elements. And that's an amazing thing to be able to say, that if there's something in the universe and it's made of matter, it is on our periodic table of elements. And so it's worth explaining why that is for a few seconds to try and justify that statement. It often comes up, for example, when people talk about UFOs. They say if a UFO landed, we would know it wasn't from this world because it would be made of stuff that we don't have on our periodic table of elements. And the answer is, if it's made of matter, it'll be made of stuff that's on our periodic table. It has to, because it turns out there's nothing missing off our periodic table. The first thing to know about the periodic table is each element has a number up there. So hydrogen is element number 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, beryllium 4, boron 5, on and on up the periodic table of elements. That number tells us the number of protons inside the nucleus. There are 3 basic building blocks of matter. There are protons with a positive charge, neutrons with no charge, and they're contained in the nucleus of the atom. And then there are the negatively charged electrons that orbit around the atom. And they orbit at quite a distance away from the nucleus. The nucleus is remarkably small. The best way to think about the nucleus is about the size of a pea in the middle of a football field. So if you imagine the size of a football field with the electrons out here representing the edge of the football field, then the nucleus is about the size of a pea down there at the center of the football field. So the nucleus is very small compared to the distribution of atoms. The different elements on the periodic table have different numbers of protons. So we mentioned before that hydrogen was element 1, and it's element 1 because down in its nucleus, deep down at the center, it has 1 positively charged proton, and which means it also has 1 negatively charged electron.
So hold on, let's get into it real quick. So you got atoms, got protons, neutrons, and electrons, right? Protons, positive energy, right? Now, in that atom, in the beginning, and also in Arabic, atom is another term for black. Melanin, melanated, right? So if you break the atom down, or the proton, the neutron, the electron, matter, and antimatter, you can take antimatter out of matter and create something with a negative charge, but you can give that negative charge form and expression.
Orbiting around it. Helium is element number 2 on the periodic table. Its atomic number is 2 because it has 2 positively charged protons. Regular helium also has 2 neutrons, and so it has an atomic mass of 4, but its atomic number is 2. Carbon has atomic number 6 because there are 6 positively charged protons down there. So if we look back at the periodic table of elements, the element number tells us the number of protons. And so we have 1 proton, 2 protons, 3 protons, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As you go down the periodic table of elements, you'll see that there are no numbers missing from the periodic table. So for example, let me pick this, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Each number is represented on the periodic table. And the thing about protons is they don't come in halves. There's no such thing as 45 and a half protons. You either have 44 protons or 45 protons. You don't have something in between. And if you look carefully at the periodic table, you will see that there are no numbers missing on the table. We have discovered every element there is on the periodic table. I'll talk about these big ones.
So why is that important? The reason why that is important when dealing with the subject of the UFO is showing you that if it has matter, then it is made from stuff that's right here in this galaxy, in this universe, the same elements that's right here on Earth. Proving what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stated, that the UFO was made on the island of Nippon by the original scientists, right? So what is that saying? What is that saying? It's actually telling you, that there are scientists that's out there with that type of knowledge that knows how to take these elements, these protons, neutrons, and electrons, and the matter that's within the universe, and create something like the UFO. I mean, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, and that calls for further study, which we'll get into that at a later time, right? But also, it's something else though that I want to deal with you guys on, right? We got to get into this election that's going on, a presidential election, and we have to get into its proper context and its proper knowledge, right? So let me get into that real quick, and we can call it a day. I just got to find it for you. Here we go. Now this comes from Desi Abdul Razak, right? And the brother sent me this, man, and I hope he's well, and give him the greetings of Assalamu alaikum. Here's another blast from the past. Something to consider this election season. Greetings to all. This is dedicated to all my fellow electronic and electrician friends. Only you all will have a full appreciation for my madness. Here we go. I hope all you did your patriotic duty, I'm sure you did, and participated in the 4 Hertz Shuffle. 4 as in every 4 years. I'm talking about the social and political mega ritual called the U.S. presidential elections. And I say Hertz because it's all about energy, electrical energy, emotional and mental energy, the manipulation and exploitation of the masses' sensitivities, the Great Shuffle. And since we all are bioelectric beings, I hope you all went to your nearest polling place and electronic voting machine and casted your vote. Did you discharge your vote on the positive pole or the negative pole? It really doesn't matter which, as long as we applied our voltage to keep the political machinery, to keep this theater in motion. Trump or Biden, and I'm putting Trump or Biden since this is the current candidates, will give it their all on the presidential campaign circuit. Dems versus Repubs, donkeys versus elephants, Bloods versus Crips, blue versus red. Many sparks will fly. They'll fight down to the wire. They'll fight hard to see who has enough juice, enough electoral juice to be in charge. The electoral vote flip-flop through many states. And once all the elections' electronic voting had been counted and the polls closed, the electrons of the Electoral College discharged their votes. The elites had elected that vote. The elites had elected or will elect the next president who has the juice to be in charge in Washington, D.C. and its United States. And believe it or not, I couldn't make this stuff up. Yes, you might have guessed it. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. William Shakespeare. All of this ties in together. You know, this is a study that those of you who have smaller children, I'm saying that's still in a school age, whether it be kindergarten, elementary, junior high, high school, you have to study these elements. You have to study the chemistry. You may say, well, what's the purpose of that, right? Why study these elements, and what's the purpose of studying this form of chemistry? Because you are composed of elements that's on the periodic table. You are composed of elements that's on the periodic table. I'll repeat. You have oxygen in you. You have atoms in you. You got carbon, proton, neutrons, electrons within your very being, in your very soul, right? So you need that many. So when you hear someone tells you to study thyself, to know yourself, you're actually studying the universe when you're studying yourself, because you are made up of elements out of this universe. There's nothing out there that you're not connected to. You know, that's one reason why we go out in the sun, because we feed from the sun. Those sun rays goes through our organs, which is our skin, and we feed through that energy, and we gather the vitamin D and the nutritions that come from the sun, and it helps us to remain healthy, right? Versus, say, those that doesn't get a lot of sunlight, you will see the effect of not getting the sunlight. You'll see it in their face, their eyes. They become weakly and sickly, right? So the sun is important, but we all are kin to this universe. Now, the Big Bang Theory, and you can't say this is all an intelligent design, and then come back and say, well, there was a happenstance that two atoms collide and created a Big Bang, and then matter clumped together, and we created planets and whatnot. Because if this is an intelligent design, then that means that the atoms that was floating in that triple darkness, or that triple carbon, or that deep dark melanin, then that atom had thought. It had intelligence in the atom, which caused things into existence using the elements that was in our universe to give or create form and expression, i.e. man. So we have to look into that. But once again, dealing with knowledge, you cannot grow and evolve to the next stage if you don't tap into all knowledge and deal with it as it is. You can't say or make statements like, look, don't talk about that stuff, because you're going to only make people upset. People will come after you and try to take your jobs. People will blackball you. They're not going to let you talk about certain things on their platform or something that they created. And it's deeper than that. Knowledge is for the whole of humanity, and not just for a few, because we evolve with and through knowledge. You understand? So you can't say, don't talk about this subject, it's taboo. Hell, if you watch a lot of these movies and television shows, they have so many different topics dealing with everything from Satan, the devil, to magic, to demons, to overly sexual shows, to you name it. It's all on the table. And you can't tell a people, that's racism, when you tell black people you're not allowed to study this type of knowledge. You only can remain over here, because that's what the slave master did. He went in that book. Don't you go over here into the Old Testament. You stay right here in this New Testament, and you teach turn the other cheek, and you teach that if the master's cold, you give the master your coat, and you stay right here, and this is what you teach. When there's other knowledges out there that you can learn from to better yourself. And the more equipped and the more knowledgeable a person is, the greater the society is. But through racism, America tried to suppress some of its brightest minds, i.e. black minds, to where it led to other nationalities catching up and passing America as far as academics, right? Because you're so worried about suppressing certain knowledges when there's a lesson in the knowledge, and there's knowledge within knowledge that you can extract from and understand, and all that goes back into physics, to the elements, to this universe. So you can't suppress knowledge and think you're gonna move forward in time prosperous. You see, so Knowledge is universal. It's for every being walking on this planet. To understand. You cannot say, "Hey, you can't study this. You can't say this." And what you only thing you can say is, "Let's sit down, prove what you say, and if you're right, I will apologize. And if the end of the conclusion I'm right, you apologize." That's what civil beings do. You can't say, "Hey, Nick Cannon, whoa, buddy, what are you saying?" You can't say that. Get out there and apologize if the man had uh, research, found it to be true, and he put his evidence on the table. As I stated, then it's the other party's responsibility to go and vet that knowledge. And that's what keeps it civil, because you're dealing with grown men and grown women who see themselves as such. You can create a narrative, a straw man, and give it and paint it black, and give it your mind or your ideas on what or how you would like to see that person behave in a second class rate state, but that don't make it true. That's just something that you created and put forth, and wanted everybody to take what came out of your mind and say that that's the definition of what these people are, when it's false. It's just something you created, but it doesn't make it true, is what I'm saying. The true melanated carbon people, the melanated carbon oxygenated people, original of the planet Earth, is not that. They're very intelligent, made some of your best scientists, some of your best mathematicians, created some of the best architecture that's on the planet today, all the way from the America's White House, all the way to mosques in Spain. Beautiful, right? So you got to give that. You can't tie African Americans that's in America is kin to Afro, you name it. Afro Moors, Afro Latinos, Afro Polynesians, Afro, you name it. Right? So you can't say, well, the whatever term you deem and say, well, African Americans is the whole makeup of all melanated people on the planet. That's just not true. Afro or melanated people in the Americas are kith and kin to every melanated group on the planet. So that makes us all as one people. But I understand the purpose of separating, to cause confusion and divide us and conquer, and saying, well, you African Americans, the Haitians don't like y'all. Dominicans don't like y'all. Puerto Ricans don't like y'all. You know what I'm saying? So-and-so don't like. That's hogwash. That's BS. It don't even work like that. Man, you travel from Panama to the Virgin Islands to Jamaica to Africa, and that melanin meet up and have a good time all over the globe. And they say, well, damn, brother, the shows that we saw of black people in America, they only showed, the gangster moves and y'all killing each other and savagery. And it was like, well, it's done on purpose, but we understand why it was done. It's chess. We playing chess. But the problem comes when you play the chess game and somebody gets upset and they want to knock all the pieces off the board and take their board and go home because you get gathered up on them, or it's a greater chance that you getting ready to win the game. So they get mad and want to tear the board up, the chessboard, knock the pieces on the floor, throw the queen and the rook down the street, knock over the bishop. They upset, and there's no cause for that, man. We dealing intelligently. We calling a new America. That should be that's the thing. a new America. We getting ready to venture into a new America, and as I stated, raise the minimum wage to 15.50, and 50 cents off that dollar will go towards the taxes. The other 50 would go towards the FOI to secure black neighborhoods out of love to keep racist cops out of the community who got an itchy trigger finger ready to kill black people. And the rest goes to the worker that's who would want to create a savings for retirement in which the employer would match that, out of that remaining 14.50, out of the remaining 14.50. So 50 of that to go towards their savings, their retirement, and we can roll like that, and that'll give people a boost up in a capitalistic society. So we throwing that out there. And one thing before we get out of here, right? Don't let them tell you what they're going to do for you. You tell them what you need and see which one can provide that need. Who can do it, or who's willing, or who pledges to do what you need. You got to know what you need, because when somebody tells you what you need, then you are subservient to their idea on what they think you need. And they don't have to come down and live your life to know what you need. You know what you need because you live the life, and then you tell them do this, then do that. You don't let them tell you this is what we gonna do and do that. It's like you go to the doctor and you walk in, he say this is what we gonna do for you, and you haven't even told him your symptoms and where the pain hurt, where you're aching at. He just said, you know what I'm gonna do for you? I'm gonna give you 2 aspirins and send you home. Thank you for coming in. And you like, okay, well, thank you. You gave me something. Nah, it don't work like that. You tell them, look, man, I'm aching right here. I need you to fix this right here. I need to be cured of this right here. And you ask the doctor, can you do it? If he say, well, nah, that's out of my scope of expertise. And you say, okay, you go on to the next one. And he said, oh, yeah, I can do that. That's my specialty. Okay, well, cool. Now you got somebody you can deal with. You understand what I'm saying? Verl Pick Radio. We out.